G'day guys, Dean from Blog for the Blood God here, and today I want to talk about a slightly controversial topic, and this is a narrative that's brought up online in lots of different places. You'll see tons of Facebook threads, Reddit threads, Discord chats, talking about the prevalence of cheating in competitive 40k. And basically I want to respond to some of these critiques because I think that they are false, and I think that the prevalence of cheating in 40k is a lot lower than the online community would have you believe. So I basically want to break down their argument, give it a steel man, and really discuss the points that are made, and then address each one individually and share my thoughts from my experience with several years in that tournament scene. So with that being said, we're going to jump straight into the video, but before we do, another quick plug to the YouTube Super Thanks feature. If you want to show some support for this channel, you can do it by putting a Super Thanks. It attaches a donation to your comment, and it's a really good way of supporting the channel and encouraging me to continue increasing the quality of these videos, buying new lighting, new equipment, updating my software, those sorts of things. So it goes a long way to supporting this channel continuing to grow. And yeah, so with that being said, let's just jump straight into the video.
Blog for the Blood God.
G'day guys, today I wanted to talk to you about a narrative that I see online that the top of competitive 40k is all full of cheaters. So this is something that you see pop up in, competitive 40k Facebook groups and, Reddit threads and things like that, as well as just sort of a general theme that you hear people discussing when you go to game stores and things like that. And the theory is that, basically the top tiers of competitive 40k, they're all cheaters, they're all win at all cost, they're all bullies, and that's one of the reasons why competitive 40k tournaments are bad, and blah, 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 blah. And I wanted to basically respond to this and give some of the reasons why I think this is not true. So I guess the best place to start is to sort of discuss why I think this conversation is so important to have, and why I'm taking the time out of my day to actually record this and discuss and address these comments, I guess. The first one is that the competitive 40k community is something that I'm deeply passionate about. Some of the best friends that I've got and the longest friends that I've had, I've met through competitive 40k tournaments. It's a huge source of, pride, and a source of meaning, and a source of, achievement and direction in my life. And I know it's the same for a lot of people. So to hear it attacked online and attacked in stores as a bunch of cheating win at all cost players, it really triggers me. So I wanted to respond to it because of that. I also wanted to say that, the accusations and assertions that top tier players and are often cheaters is just false. Right? And I believe that I can sort of prove this through logic, but we'll get into that in a moment. And the other thing is that all of these assertions and these comments, they kind of put people off competitive 40k. They disincentivize people from entering the tournament scene. And the tournament scene is such an amazing community with such fucking fantastic people that it's a real disappointment, it's a real shame when people who aren't part of that community go around slandering it and saying that it's full of cheaters. That's really disappointing, and it kind of puts people off joining, which is then, their loss. So I really want to sort of do my part to put these comments to bed and to, show people that they don't need to worry about it, and that cheating is nowhere near as prevalent as the internet would have you believe when it comes to competitive 40k. So that's why I think it's really important to have this conversation. That being said, their argument on face value seems pretty logically solid, right? So their argument is that the top ranked players at Warhammer 40k events are often cheaters. And one of the ways that they sort of make this argument is they say that players with a high skill are always going to be at a competitive advantage, right? That makes sense. Then they say players who cheat are going to be at a competitive advantage. That also makes sense. So then they say players who have a high skill who also cheat are going to be at a competitive advantage against players who just have a high skill, right? And you're like, okay, I can buy that as well. That also makes sense. And then they say basically in order to win consistently and outperform other players with a high skill, you need to cheat. And this is where they sort of start to lose me, but it still kind of makes sense, right? In that if you want to consistently win, like if you're both just players of high skill, you'd expect roughly a 50-50 win rate. But if you want to consistently win, if you want to increase that win rate, one of the ways that you could theoretically do it is to cheat and give yourself an unfair advantage, right? Makes sense. So therefore they say players who consistently win at the top tables must be cheating. So those points, they all sort of make sense, but I think that there's something critical that they miss, which is one of the reasons why I think cheating almost can't exist in the top tiers of competitive 40k. So my theory is that cheating is a crutch that prevents a player from developing the skill required in order to consistently win. So this is my rebuttal to those logical points that a lot of people make online. So cheating, in my opinion, would make games less challenging, right? If you're saying that cheating gives you a competitive advantage, therefore it necessarily makes the game less challenging, right? And overcoming challenges is what develops a player's skill. So therefore, cheating limits the development of a player's skill, and high skill is required to consistently win at tournaments. So realistically, what I'm suggesting is that obviously, yes, there are people who attend tournaments who cheat. However, when those people do so, they're robbing themselves of the opportunity to overcome challenges honestly. And if they're not developing the skills that are required to overcome those challenges honestly, they're not developing as a player. And if you're not developing as a player, you've got cheating, you're using it as a crutch. And the problem is if somebody's able to knock that crutch out of underneath you, like someone's real hawkish and they watch everything that you do and they watch every dice roll and they just don't let you cheat, well, then you're not going to do very well, are you? So I think a lot of players will realize that cheating, even subconsciously, they'll realize that cheating is not a good way to develop as a player. You know? So I've got some other notes here. So cheating does exist in tournaments, but it's much less impactful than you may think, and is often only on the mid to low tables. So, like I said, those who are competing at the top tables, they often do it because they've spent years developing their player skill. And they've done this because they don't cheat. That's key, right? Whereas those who do cheat never really developed their player skill, and therefore they never really get to those top tables. And when they do get to those top tables, they're faced with somebody who has legitimate player skill. And I think a lot of the player skill that you develop is things like positioning, prioritizing, overall strategy of how you approach the game. And those are sort of areas that you can't really cheat. You know, like by cheating, I'm talking about like when people roll extra dice, like they get 10 shots, but they roll 12 dice, and, you know, or they lie about a rule. They're supposed to be hitting on 3s, but they tell you that they're hitting on 2s, you know, those sorts of things where you're cheating to achieve better results. But that doesn't matter if the game plan that you've put forward is bad. You know, that doesn't matter if your priority, your target allocation is bad. So I think when people are cheating, they're getting wins that they don't deserve, and therefore they're not developing the skills to do good target priority. They're not developing the skills required to do, you know, the good overall strategies and coming up with good plans. So someone who's performing exceptionally well does not indicate that they're cheating. In fact, I believe it's the opposite. I believe that if you look at the real top tier players, you know, the real strong players, they're ones who don't cheat and never cheat, you know, because that means that they've been going into adversity after adversity after adversity and still managing to come out on top because they've developed their player skill by facing that adversity. So realistically, cheating is an exceptionally bad long-term strategy. It's probably good in the short term, like if you just want to win this one game, you know, then cheating obviously is going to help you do it. But it's an exceptionally bad long-term strategy, which is why I am a strong believer that in tournaments where that long-term strategy is very important, I think you see less cheating than you do in, say, casual games. You know, like if you just want to win to stroke your own ego, you go down to the local games workshop or the local hobby store and play a game against some stranger. There's no downside to cheating there and getting that win. Like, you know, obviously there's downsides for the community and there's downsides for, you know, your opponent. But for you personally, if you're not looking to develop as a player, you're just looking to go in there and stroke your ego, well, then that's going to tick, that box. But if you're looking to, you know, get really high ranked on the ITC, or if you're looking to win a tournament where you have to win consecutive games, well, cheating is an exceptionally bad long-term strategy if that's your goal. And then the next point, I guess, is that cheaters often place above average due to their unearned wins, but they lose when they come up against the experienced players. One of the skills that you develop if you never cheat, one of the skills that you will develop is a really keen eye for cheating. You'll know exactly what it looks like when you see it, because you'll be, in order to get that those high results, you're going to have to be very attentive and very hawkish on the table. You're going to have to watch everything. You're going to have to really, really push that side of your skills, which means you're going to be paying a lot more attention to what your opponent is doing. And when you do that, you're going to notice how he cheated there. You know, that's not right. This is not right. You know, you'll identify those areas where they cheat and you'll stop them before they do, right? You'll be counting your opponent's dice as they roll them. You'll be checking their rules as they do them, right? And as a result, it's top tier players. You can't really cheat against them, you know. And if you can't cheat against them, your crutch is ripped out underneath you, and that cheating player is going to remain in the middle of the pack, whereas the honest players are going to rise. So I think, you know, when you do see cheating, which unfortunately, yes, you absolutely do see cheating on occasion. It's nowhere near as common as people would lead you to believe online, but you do see it. But I believe it's almost exclusively in the middle tables, the middle of the pack. And then I guess the other thing is that cheaters, they don't develop relationships and don't get along with people as much, and therefore they don't get the benefits of the community. So one of the main things that has boosted my player skill, and I by no means claim to be, you know, a top tier player. I'm highly ranked at the moment, but that's about it, right? But one of the things that really skyrocketed my skills was integration with the community. You know, making friends with very skilled players so that I could then play them more regularly. Like, we'll have games outside of a tournament. They'll agree to come over to my house and we'll play a game. That wouldn't happen if I was a cheater. People don't want to socialize with cheaters. They don't want to have games with cheaters. So as a result, those cheaters don't have the opportunity to network and work with other players. So therefore, those cheaters, you know, their ability to develop as a player is stunted even further. So I think that's a really important part, because in order to be a top tier player, you look at them all. Every single one of them is part of a club. You know, none of them are just solo operatives with no friends. They all are part of a club. And that's because being part of a club gives you, even on a personal level, a huge advantage. And people do not want cheaters in their club. So being a cheater is a huge disadvantage when it comes to those sorts of things as well. So, you know, realistically, the cheating is going to stop you from developing as a player, which means that all of those well-developed players that you see at tournaments, you can almost guarantee that none of them are cheaters, because they wouldn't get to the positions that they have if they were. That's sort of the point that the overall point that I'm trying to make in this video is that, based on my understanding and like my logical interpretation of, you know, the way that this works, in order to be prevalent and high ranked at 40k, you almost can't be a cheater. It's the exact opposite of the assertion that you see online, which is that in order to be a high ranked player, you must be a cheater. You know, I think there's certain areas in life where the logic of, you know, people who are prepared to abandon their moral compass are going to be an advantage. I think that's very true in certain areas of life, but I think in 40k, because it has such a community focus, I think it doesn't necessarily apply here. And I think that if you go to a tournament and you see that, wow, there's these people that go to every tournament, they're always there, and they're highly ranked players, they often end in the top 10, they're very good. Those people you can almost always trust. It's the ones in the middle of the pack that you need to be a little bit more worried about, but even then, I think that more often than not, anybody who's a regular attendee at a tournament, you can more or less trust, because they wouldn't continue to go to tournaments if they were cheaters, because they wouldn't be getting the ego stroking that those cheaters want. Like, one of the reasons that people cheat is because they're insecure. They're insecure about their results, their skills, whatever it is, so they cheat. But the thing is that cheating doesn't really fix that, because if you cheat, you're still not going to win the tournament. And then they have the problem of knowing that they cheat and still can't win. So it actually compounds that issue for them psychologically. So I think because of that, those types of people immediately go, no, I'm not going to tournaments anymore. They'll come up with some justification on their end, like, oh no, everyone at tournaments are all fuckheads, or whatever. And then they probably go online and say that everyone at tournaments are cheaters, as a way of it's like a coping mechanism for the fact that they didn't get good results. And then they go to local game stores and then they cheat. And then they go up against little Timmy at this GW and they smash him, and then that strokes their ego. So I think, realistically, the cheaters will get sort of weeded out and won't continue to play at competitive 40k tournaments. And that leaves a tournament scene that's healthy, it's robust, and it's full of honest, good people. And that's why every time I see people talk online about how tournaments are full of win-at-all-cost players, it fucking pisses me off, because it's just not true, and it denies people the opportunity to join that community. People don't want to join the community because of that online perception, and that online perception is just false. So that's my thoughts. Obviously, there are some cheaters, but there are some cheaters everywhere, right? I just wanted to sort of make a quick video to point out that, those sorts of players are extreme minorities. They have a very little impact on the scene, and there's no need to go around saying that fucking tournaments are full of win-at-all-cost players. Power gaming, on the other hand, is a very different thing. So I make these things distinct by saying that power gaming is just running a very powerful list that might not necessarily be fun to verse, because it's very powerful. And then that's power gaming. And then win at all cost are the people who are prepared to cheat in order to get the win. And I think win at all cost gets weeded out of tournaments very fast, and power gaming is emboldened and is encouraged by the community, because obviously two powerful armies going up against each other is way more interesting than a powerful army going up against a weak one, or two weak ones going up against each other. So I think you'll find that in tournaments you'll see a lot of power gaming, you'll see a lot of really powerful lists, but I don't think you'll see anywhere near as much cheating as the online community would have you believe. But what are your thoughts? That's what I want to know. Do you think I'm on the money here? Do you think I'm right? Or have you experienced significant cheating at tournaments? Now, obviously, I don't want to continue, like, if your narrative is that the tournament's full of cheaters, I'd rather we not, continue to push that narrative, because I genuinely believe that that's false. However, if your experience has been that, then maybe it is worth discussing it, and maybe it is worth bringing those things to light. So yeah, either way, let's get a conversation going in the comments below, and we'll have a chat, and we'll talk about your experience at tournaments, whether or not you've made plenty of good friends at tournaments and had a really positive engagement with that community, or whether you've found it unwelcoming, and whether you've found it to be, problematic, those sorts of things. Try not to judge your entire tournament experience off of one interaction. I know we all have a tendency to do that. You'll play 5 games and there'll be one of them that was bad, and guess which one you're going home to talk to your mates about? It's not the sick game that you had round 2, it's the shit game that you had round 4. So we all have a tendency to focus on the negatives, but let's focus on trying to be as objective as possible and look at the overall experience, and then judge, the scene based off of that. would be something that I'd like to see in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll talk to you in the next one. Cheers. Alrighty guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, let's get a conversation going in the comments below. I want to know your experiences, I want to know your opinions, and let's hash it out in the comments. Be respectful in the comments, but let's get a conversation going. I think there's a lot of ground that can be covered when discussing this topic. And as always, huge thank you to my Patreons. If you would like to sign up to the Patreon, we do coaching. We've got a unique Discord server there where you can get in, get list advice, those sorts of things, have one-on-one conversations with me. I can help you prepare for any upcoming tournaments that you might be going to, those sorts of things. And yeah, you can also support with the Super Thanks feature or by buying some of the neoprene objective markers that I sell. I get a small amount from each one of those sold, and then I can basically funnel that money into continuing to improve this channel. So thank you to all of those who support, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
One for the Blood God.
The Warhammer community suffers from some of the most prohibitively expensive essentials in the world, especially Australian content creators. Every single day, Dean wants to create content, but he can't. Suffering from old, worn-out brushes, expensive model kits, and costly software and equipment, he can't endure much longer. Just look at this dirty paint water. Would you drink this? Would you let your child? Even a small monthly donation can help provide Dean with clean paint water, basic tools for survival, and access to life-saving information and education. So please, follow the links in the description below and find out how you can sponsor a mad cunt like Dean today and end the suffering. Suffering that is cruel, unsustainable, and your fault.
Do your objective markers ever get lost behind terrain or other models and become difficult to see? Do they ever get bumped and accidentally moved during a game? And do they ever spark arguments about distances? Well, not anymore. Introducing the blog for the Blood God, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers. Made from the same material as astronaut suits, or maybe military equipment, or probably neither of those things, this 2mm thick neoprene synthetic rubber is tear resistant, water resistant, and is designed to last. But that's not all. The blog for the Blood God, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers come in a variety of different designs and styles to suit any faction represented in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. These objective markers are a perfect gift for yourself or a friend, and are a perfect way to flex and show your opponent that not only are you a smarter, cooler, and better 40k player than them, but you also have more disposable income than they do. For the low price of $25, you'll get not one, not two, but 6 neoprene objective markers, perfectly designed for 9th edition Warhammer 40k. But wait, there's more. For a limited time only, people who sign up on Patreon to support Blog for the Blood God as a Skull Champion tier $5 per month member will gain access to a custom design service where I will design a unique logo to support their gaming club, like the one I did to the left here for the Potato Farmers local gaming club here in Melbourne. Follow the links in the description of this video to pick up your set today.